Is it time to ban urethane for good? It's a divisive subject, and the resurgence of urethane in the last few years has certainly completely changed the game. Whether that change is good or bad is up for debate, but clearly this conversation of urethane has been sparked by one ball and one ball only, the purple hammer. The purple hammer has changed bowling. I'm not sure if we've ever really had a bowling ball that has impacted the game in quite the same way. It's not uncommon to go to a tournament and literally see entire racks across all the pairs filled with purples, which, given the amount of balls that are released every single year, is pretty incredible. In one way, it simplified the game because basically everyone was using one ball, but there is the argument that firstly it becomes boring, and also that it's ruining the game in other ways. People who are anti-urethane claim that it's taken a lot of skill out of the game because you don't necessarily need to build up the knowledge of how to use different reactive balls, how the transition works when using reactive, and that is a skill that needs to be learned. The purple hammer takes all of that away, and it also impacts the players not using urethane. It wasn't just the PBA that was dominated by urethane, it's literally the entire bowling world. We've had some great urethane balls over the years. The other main one is the pitch black, which is a fantastic ball, but the purple hammer is just another level. We just didn't see the pitch black utilised in the same sort of way before the introduction of the purple. As we all know, the PBA decided that enough was enough and that it was time to do something about the purple invasion. This prompted the new 78 hardness rule, which knocked out the purple and pitch black as well as some other urethane balls, particularly some of the older ones. But has this actually worked and brought reactives back into play? And the main question I'm going to answer in today's video is whether the PBA or even the USBC needs to go one step further and just outright ban urethane balls for good. So let's start by looking at the impact of the 78 hardness rule. How exactly has it changed things on tour? Now, I'm obviously not a PBA bowler, so I can only give my observations from an outside point of view. So perhaps if there are any PBA bowlers watching this, you could comment below your thoughts. But just from what I can see on the outside, urethane balls are still being used, but it seems to be more in the earlier stages of blocks before it then becomes necessary to go to reactive. Now that's just the impression I get and the things that I've heard, etc. I'm not there at every event throughout the week of qualifying, but from what I understand on the whole, it is being used in a different way. But what does seem to have stayed the same is the use of urethane on TV. And that's because on TV players are normally playing just 2 or 3 games at most, so it makes urethane still the ideal option. The first question therefore to answer is, have we seen less urethane on telecasts because of the new urethane rule? To me, it feels like there hasn't been much of a difference. There have still been lots of black hammers and IQ 78s being used on TV, and it doesn't really feel like there's a huge difference after the new rules. The only difference is, instead of seeing players throw the same colour ball down the lane, now we mainly see 2, but it's still urethane that is being used. Several winners this season used urethane on their way to victory. There were players like Jacob Buttroff and Jesper Svensson who had strong seasons, but of course those players will basically always use urethane. But outside of those players, I still feel urethane has brought players a lot of success on TV. And now this kind of brings us on to the next point that I want to mention, and that is the intentions of the PBA and also the USBC as well. Because the question is, do they want to ban urethane completely? Was this 78 hardness rule just the first step? It's a very relevant question because it helps to answer the main question of this video. If they don't want urethane banned, then I think the hardness rule has worked to an extent. It's got rid of the purple without directly banning it, but this has brought its own problems because the PBA has one set of rules. The European Tour tried to bring in the same rule. There's so much talk and arguments about what should be done that it's all become a little bit of a mess. Outside of the PBA, the purple is still dominating and it will essentially continue to do so unless a widespread ban is put in place. I don't really see how the current situation will continue because there has to be a decision made. We are essentially in limbo. We have the PBA that has essentially tested out this new rule, and it's now whether this gets rolled out further or if they go one step further and just ban it completely. If they were hoping the hardness rule would eventually kill urethane on the tour, well, clearly that hasn't worked. It really depends on what the intention is, and this is just my opinion, but I think there are definitely people out there up in the higher end of these organizations who probably do want to get rid of urethane. And if that is the case, then right now they're taking a bit of a longer road, but it does feel like we are heading in one direction. And that kind of brings us on to my opinion of all of this. And my opinion is this: urethane should just be banned at this point. And here are my reasons for that opinion. Now, I have absolutely nothing against urethane. I'm a big lover of it, and to be honest, I can only applaud Hammer for what they have created. The reason I think that it should be banned is just because I believe there are many people out there in these kind of organizations that want urethane banned. So therefore, I believe it's only a matter of time. So my question is, why are we prolonging things? Also, I feel it's just got a little bit too confusing and complicated. Some tournaments, you can use the purple, sometimes you can't, sometimes it's 78 hardness rules. Other tournaments have popped up that are not urethane at all. And the danger with that the longer that goes on and the more places this 78 hardness rule comes into, the more the rules will start to vary. And that's when it just all becomes unclear and it starts to not make a lot of sense, and you run the danger then of starting to forget the main reason why the hardness rule was brought in. And if we're honest, it was basically to stop the purple hammer. The problem was there wasn't really a way for them to outright ban a single bull, but I just want things to be simple. If the PBA or the USBC or whoever wants to get rid of urethane and that's the decision, then let's just make that decision and ban them now, rather than another 2 or 3 years of new rules, more confusion, more debate. Let's just get on with the inevitable. And that's exactly what it feels like. It feels like only a matter of time before it does ultimately get banned. I think we as bowlers are sick of the discussion and the confusing rules, so let's just make it simple. We basically have a choice. We either allow urethane, including the purple, or we just ban it altogether. Myself personally, I don't mind if the purple is allowed to stay. What I don't like is things being unclear, things that don't make sense. And I think that's the kind of position we're getting to slowly, where we don't know what's going to happen next. There's not a lot of clarity. We don't know what 2026 is going to bring. And yeah, I just would like some clarity and a decision to be made. I think many would respect the PBA and USBC if they do decide to ban urethane entirely, because at least that way they have been bold. They've made the decision and they have stuck with it. Whatever ends up happening, you won't ever please everyone, but I think it's finally time to end this debate and just make a decision on the future of urethane for good. I could do a whole hour video on this, and I haven't even really touched on the positives of urethane, the positives of keeping it in the game, and there are positives to it. It's not all bad. I'm not a urethane hater at all. As I mentioned, it's the reason why I feel we should just go and ban it. It's not really got anything to do with the game as such, if that makes sense. It's just to do with the fact that just seems to be the way we're heading. I don't see any other way. I just think the intentions have been quite clear about where things will go with urethane, and I just think this is going to continue to be a problem. There's not really going to be much of a solution in the end apart from to ban it. The only way it might change is if this, for example, the Storm family, another brand, comes up with a ball that is basically on par with the purple hammer. So far that hasn't really happened. The closest you have is the pitch black, but as I said, it's still not at that level in terms of impact as the purple hammer. So if there is another brand out there, outside of the hammer family, that comes up with the new purple hammer, well, suddenly I think you have something a little bit different, because then you have something that's accessible to everybody. But again, all of this is just my opinion, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Let me know whether you think we should continue to allow urethane and the purple hammer to carry on as we are, or do you think we should just go ahead and ban it? Let me know in the comment section below. That's going to do it from me for today. I'd like to thank you all, as always, for your support. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here today, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button below. And as always, thank you, bowling fans, and see you all next time.